Welcome back to the Superhuman Resilience Project. I want to start today with something I've heard far too many times, and that is if I knew that something was off, I just didn't know what to say. Those words usually show up after the moment has already passed, after the silence has done its damage. So today we're talking about why saying something, anything, can change the entire trajectory of someone's life. And I'm not speaking in theory, I'm speaking from experience. Because here with me today is the man who didn't stay silent. This is the man who noticed I was cracking and reached out and refused to let me disappear. The man whose simple act of seeing me, really seeing me, kept me going when I didn't have much left. This is a huge part of the reason why I'm here with you today, able to sit behind this microphone and reach out to all of you. So please welcome, with so much gratitude, Seth Elliott.
Thanks for having me here today, Kara, for just a kind of wonderful chat and a catch-up. It's always a pleasure to see you.
I agree. Seth, your story carries a weight that only someone who's lived it can understand. You've walked through your own battles, and instead of turning inward or shutting the world out, you chose to reach back to others who were struggling in the dark. That choice says everything about the kind of man you are. You hold your own history with honesty, and at the same time, you show up for a community with steadiness that people can lean on. That balance, surviving your own storms while guiding others through theirs, is a rare kind of strength. And today, we're not here to dissect your pain or put your trauma on display. We're here to honor the resilience it took to keep going, the compassion it took to notice others, and the courage it took to speak up when silence would have been easier. Your presence in this space is a reminder that healing isn't just personal, it's communal. And the way that you live that truth has changed lives, including mine. Why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
My name is Seth Elliott. I'm 21 years with the state of Missouri. I'm working on a lot of different types of facilities and dealing with a whole lot of different people and different challenges. Aside from that, I'm a father of 3 beautiful girls and married, and just absolutely most right of myself, good people.
So, Seth, what inspired you to begin reaching out to others who were struggling?
A lot of my inspiration came kind of from my own experience. When I was in some of the darkest places earlier in my career with the state, but also earlier in my marriage, in some dark places, I had a few people that kind of reached out and saw the me behind everything that was going on, but there was very few and far between. Finding services, finding help was difficult because it was so, especially at that time, you're talking 20 years ago, a lot of those struggles that we were going through was very much focused more toward my spouse than it was toward maybe some of my needs. And so as I kind of saw where I was at when I started to begin my healing process, I started recognizing more people around me that were kind of in the same state that they needed somebody to reach out to them also. I have friends that never moved, and I wanted to be that person that never moved and was always there, and that actually really springboarded me into wanting to continue to help people on both professionally, but especially personally, help those people and show them, hey, you matter.
That's amazing, Seth. And it's not easy either. What do you notice in people that are struggling? How do you know, hey, this person is struggling?
I think one of the first things that is always very important to me is getting to know the actual person. I don't know if you're struggling if all that I see is the same thing every day. Until I take a step and get a peek behind the mask, all that I see is what people want them to see. I had a friend that once said that training is like being on stage. You show up for the audience. And a lot of us felt the same way going into our jobs and to our work. So when we got dressed for the day, when we pulled into the office, we were on stage. We gave the production that our audience expected and demanded, but we weren't seeing what was happening behind the curtain. And that's one thing that I really tried to do, is to get to know them personally. Because when you start glancing behind that mask, then you start seeing more if they're struggling, or are you seeing the true them? Because that's what I want to know, is the true you, where you're at right this moment.
It's also very relatable because we do, um, in those professions, in our work, in what you and I have both experienced together. You slap that smile on your face, and you say the right thing when you're supposed to say the right things, and behind closed doors, people don't realize that you're kind of unraveling.
I made the comment to a coworker the other day. They asked me how I was doing, and my comment is the same as every other day. No better, no worse. And it took them to kind of moment to pause. And we kind of had a close heart to heart at after the fact, because unfortunately, I was not doing any better or any worse than any other day. I was stagnant at where I was at. And so often we pass people in the halls and say, "Good morning, how are you doing today?" And we all wait for that expected answer of, "I'm doing great," or "It's good. I'm fine. How was your day?" And yet there's a whole lot of other things going on. Where do you really find that day? We don't do a very good time. We don't do a very good job showing that. And that's where it's hard to see if somebody is truly struggling. That's why it's so important to not only make yourself vulnerable by doing a little sharing, but also getting to know people, so that when things aren't the same, you start noticing some differences. You know that something has changed. And it may take some more conversations.
It's a very good point. Those conversations that just let people know that it's okay not to be okay. How do you approach them so that they don't throw up some kind of a wall or just walk away from the conversation?
For me, it goes back to just having personal relationship with some of those people around you. A personal professional relationship. Some you become friends with, some it is a personal professional. But you've got to know the person. If you start knowing the person, then you will start seeing, when you see those walls, it is easier to navigate through them. I've received over the years so much training in suicide, where you ask those tough questions. Well, if somebody's not suicidal and you just really want to go to how their feelings are, if you want them to pour out their heart a little bit, sometimes you need to have some kind of connection with that person. Because honestly, you need to prove to them that you're a safe person and that you're in a safe place to have that conversation. You have the reputation of following through, that you're going to be honest with them, but also they need to know that they're cared. Because, or you're only going to see what they're putting up on stage. And sometimes on stage is a comedy, sometimes it's a drama, but it's really not what the script is. And so to see that, I really need to know who that person is and what's on the inside.
What misconceptions about PTSD do you wish that more people understood?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions for me is that it guides every ounce of my actions. PTSD is always a part of me, but it doesn't guide everything that I do. It doesn't define me. And I think that's one thing that we miss sometimes with PTSD, is how so often our military, our first responders, um, even those that aren't in those professions that do experience PTSD, so often we define them by what happened to them, or by those four letters, instead of defining us by what we are. Man, I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm a friend. There's so many other things that define me. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions of PTSD, is that it's not the definition of me. That is just one part of me that I live with, but it does not define every ounce of me.
What have you learned about resilience from walking through your own darkness?
But you can't do it alone. I enjoy a lot of isolated resilience activities. I love being out in nature. I love being active. I love being out on my motorcycle. But I also learned the times I'm most resilient is when I involve other people in the process. It takes a community of support because also sometimes I need somebody to tell me you kind of need to step up your game a little bit, or I see you slipping. Or maybe simple things of I think you need a break, and I can't always advocate that on my own. Sometimes I need somebody from the outside saying, "Hey, buddy, I think it's time that we did something. You need something to put a little extra pep in your step today."
I think one of my favorite things that I've heard from you and I've heard from other people in our community is I've had people say to me, Kara, what are you doing for yourself right now? And I think that's one thing that a lot of us could use because I think that really shows that people are noticing. And it makes us realize that we're needing to step up that game.
No, definitely. And don't get me wrong, I love isolation. When I'm not feeling good, when I'm at the end of the day, I'm tired of being on stage. I want to kick my shoes off. I want to boot up my Xbox, and I want to just slowly start shutting the world out. But sometimes I drag myself out to other places because being around people um added aspect to my healing that I can't do by myself. All that isolation does for me is bring more isolation, and then it doesn't bring more healing. So I look for opportunities to interact and maybe expand my community. But the beautiful thing is outside of work, it's on my terms. I can control the place. A lot of times I can control the type of people, as in if I want to go to church, for example, and be around a lot of religious people. If I want to go to a library, I'm around a bunch of, you know, bookworms, a little bit like myself. If I want to go to a gaming store, I can pick what environment that I'm choosing and how I want to interact around people. I think that's so very important when we think about interacting with others is we can control our environment to a degree outside of our professions. There's some we cannot, but some of them we can just by what community do we want to surround ourselves with.
How do you build trust with people who may feel isolated or misunderstood?
I think a lot of it is being present for one. And when I say present, not only physically, but limiting distractions. It's not that I come into your office and you're checking your email during our conversation. You're actually present. You're focused. People gauge a lot of that. I hate having conversations with somebody that is distracted or gets distracted in the middle of the conversation. And that is one of the biggest keys to building trust with another individual is knowing that when that conversation starts, that you are committed till there's an end of the conversation. You want to be able to build on that relationship because if you don't, you lose a lot of trust. I can't go by your office and ask you your name 5 days a week, but I can go by and say, hey, you said you were doing something last night. How did that go? How did that make you feel?
I'm just realizing how you got through me. When we were working together, he would show up at my door and we would have these conversations. They made my day. They really did. They made me feel seen. And more than anyone else, that made me feel seen. But you didn't push me either. You didn't push me to say, "Hey, what's going on with you, Kara?" You just kind of were there, and I love that about you. That's why he's my brother.
Conversation. We have conversations all the time. What's wrong with carrying to that conversation?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I try to do is care through that conversation. I don't always succeed, and I don't exceed with everybody. But hey, carrying through the conversation is just so important tool. And some of the people that I respect some of the highest are the ones that every time I talk to them, they carry through the conversation. They some of the details may slip, but you know that they care about that what's happening, and because of that, it makes them a safe person to sit there and sometimes pour a little bit of your heart. Because when we pour out our heart, we are sharing a piece of ourselves that in a lot of cases we hide from other people because we're on stage.
Yeah, we are. We were trained to be on stage. They're trained to be up front. But as trainers of those first responders, we also were taught that not only did we have to be the normal up front, but we had to be on now, and it's time for us to give our show. And so, what moments of connection have stayed with you, or reminded you why this work matters so much?
Some of the moments that of connection that really have stayed with me is all the individuals that I see through my job throughout the state that I've seen, whether it's volunteering with Warriors Ascent or whether it's through referring through different avenues, seeing them again and seeing how they've started their journey through healing, whether it's being less self-destructive or actually taking those taking those big leaps forward. I've seen both, and that's one thing that for me really reminds me why it's so important to be kind to others and why it's so important to kind of see past how they're reacting to things and trying to find out what can we do with that reaction. Where can we refocus? How can we begin a path of healing? Because really, all that we're seeing is a solution to a problem that they're having. So, some of my silliest blowups have had absolutely nothing to do with what I was looking at. It was just that was the last thing that I could carry at that moment.
What does community look like for you now compared to earlier in your healing journey?
Who I surround myself has changed heavily. So before and early on in my journey, I surrounded myself with those that slept, ate, and breathed our profession. Whereas that's not what defines me. I'm proud and excited about so many other things. So I started surrounding my community with people that help me be excited and are excited about a whole lot of things. A lot of us get very trapped in that conversation of work.
Hmm.
We want to talk about how awful this person is and about that person. What's so easy when that's all you surround yourselves with. Try to don't always succeed, but I try to surround myself with people where we might check in about our jobs, and then after that, we talk about just our sheer excitement of other things going on. Kind of like our last phone conversation. We talked for what 2 hours on the phone.
Yes, we did.
Wait, we had to dump about some work stresses and everything, but after that, we were just spent time back and forth about all the exciting aspects of our life. And I think that is very important when we look at our community is we need to expand it. We need to expand it from that immediate 9 to 5 and start expanding it back into our own physical community, whether it's through volunteering, whether it's through it could be through kids sports, your own act um interest and activities.
How do you take care of yourself? I know that when you're ready to start your journey, you're not taking care of yourself, or at least I wasn't for sure. I had gained a lot of weight from stress because I'm a stress eater. I was doing unhealthy things, not necessarily intentionally, but subconsciously, I think because I just didn't care anymore.
Taking care of myself is an awful thing that I'm not very good at doing. And a lot of that's because of how much energy I pour into other people. But some of the basic things that I choose to do is I decompress and I think the best through motion. And so earlier we had a brief conversation about doing mindful and meditation through movement. I'm again enjoy time on my motorcycle. I enjoy the outdoors, and through a lot of that movement is how I take care of myself. Because that first little bit, I am upset. I am so focused on what's going wrong or on just what I'm struggling helping another person, and then as I'm moving, I start opening my eyes. I start seeing what's actually happening around me. I start stopping to smell those roses. I'm taking pictures of wildlife. Not while I'm riding the bike, but while I'm hiking around. I start doing those things, and by the time I'm done, I find that I'm refocused, I'm reset, I'm in a better place because I went from being focused on everything that was going on around me, the external things, and I started focusing on what was going on internally. How do I feel? How do I feel physically? Do I ache? Is it time for me to, drop on my chiropractor? Or the other part of that is I'm doing mentally. Am I exhausted? Do I need to slow something down? Do I need to take a break? Maybe it's time for me to call up a friend and say, "Hey, I think it's a good time for a little Thai food or doing something a little bit different." Those things are such a big key to my um self care while I'm caring for other people. I'm there for you. I'm there for you 24/7. I have to remember those little things because, or I mean, I wear out like everyone else.
We have to continue taking care of ourselves because you will wear back out again. It's not a one and done. Your healing journey is not a one and done thing. It's something that you have to keep working at. But the more you work at it, I think the easier you find it to be.
Percent, well, I'll never be 100% perfect. It's going to keep being a process. I stumble and fall like everybody else, but having those self care moments to keep giving me purpose to keep brushing myself off to take that next step. I can't. I'm a warrior. I'm going to keep trying. I'm not going to just lay there and disappear dust.
How do you hope your story impacts the people who hear it?
The biggest takeaway of any story that I do share is that my hope is that when people see another person, that they treat them with kindness. Some of us have very difficult jobs. I have to make very difficult decisions, but that's no reason why through the process we still can't extend some kindness. And kindness is such a big key. And that's what I hope in the end, my story, how it impacts is I hope that it causes more people to be kind to each other. And then also if they are struggling to know that um they deserve better. We deserve to keep making those steps forward instead of falling more into despair. We deserve to be happy. It's not the happiness is not for the poor, it's not for the wealthy, it's for everybody. And extending some of that kindness will help you. There's always somebody worse off or happier than you for whatever reason when you're looking from the outside. But that might not be how their inside feels. But the thing is being kind, it's free. And being deserving of that kindness and that compassion is something you deserve and it doesn't cost anything. And so seeking those moments where you can responsibly be happy when you can seek those things that bringing meaning and joy are so very important because you deserve it. You deserve to experience responsibly all your emotions. We have all of them, but if you shut them all down, then eventually you're going to have nothing left, or you're just going to be that dark cloud that walks into the room, and nobody wants to live like that.
If you could shift one belief about the stigma in the broader community, what would it be?
I would say the one of the biggest stigma through the entire community I would like to see changed and re-steered, especially about PTSD, is, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, is that is all that defines you. Because you have PTSD, you are XYZ. And that is one thing I'd like to see a lot of that changes because there's a lot of people doing amazing things out in our communities right now that nobody knows or what challenges, what traumas and struggles that they're living with day to day, and how quickly sometimes our perspective or our opinions of them change once when we see a diagnosis attached. It doesn't mean that their heart has changed. It just may mean that they may have a few more challenges that they navigate or may need extra help to navigate. But it doesn't mean that their heart's not trying to do the right thing. And I think that's an important thing about stigma is we need to get through all that meat and flesh and get down to the person's heart. And knowing that sometimes I may be, because of my PTSD and because of my ADD, I may be a little bit more impulsive on with some of the things that I do, but and some of the things I say, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean that that's where my heart is. My heart is trying to do the right thing, to do a little kindness. It's just sometimes it doesn't connect to my mouth as well as I'd like it to.
What do you want the next generation of people to know? The people who are just getting started in these high stress service fields, law enforcement, firefighting, corrections, dispatching, nursing, all those different things. What do you want them or or those future leaders to know?
Don't wait. Don't wait to build connections, whether it's personal professional connections with people. Don't wait to seek for help. But honestly, in a lot of our cases, and Kara, you'll attest to this yourself as we discussed, and I'm a prime example also. It took people on the outside to recognize that maybe we were in a little worse shape than we thought we were in. So don't wait to have those people that are willing to have those conversations. Include them in your lives and try to be open and kind to them. And when we talk about our leaders, know your people, but also don't be afraid to extend some kindness. Accountability sometimes when you're a leader or a supervisor, but we can still do those things with kindness. And but we also don't need to wait to say, hey, we can do better, and this is how we can do better.
Or I had no idea there was nothing or something going on.
Well, and unfortunately, that is such a common phrase as, well, I had no idea. And in some cases, that's true. But again, if you don't have a connection with the individuals that you're with, that professional connection, then of course you didn't know, because you're all that you saw was how they were coping with their challenges, instead of seeing the person that wasn't on stage, that face behind the mask. You've got to know these people, and so these leaders really need to take that opportunity to find out the person behind it, because you can refer somebody all day long to the services that your organization is providing. You can do that all day long. But the simple thing is the services will always be underused unless they feel like the person talking to them and helping them go in that direction is somebody that they can trust and that is safe to interact with. And you can't do that just by walking in the hall and throwing a card on somebody's desk. You got to have that personal connection.
Is there anything that you'd like to add to our conversation we've just been having? I mean, something you want to let people know.
The thing I just want people in general to know is everybody deserves to do better. And the only way we're going to accomplish that is reaching out our hand and lifting others up, instead of putting that amount of energy into pushing each other down. We need to lift each other up. Everybody around us is dealing with struggles and challenges that we know nothing about. And some of those things we'll never know anything about, even some of our closest friends and family, but we can still lift them up. And at times we may be that person that drives them somewhere to get help and services. It may be we're making that phone call for them, but we need to be lifting them up and supporting them instead of turning away. Or thing I see a lot in my profession is prejudging people because of one aspect that they've seen without knowing the person that's not on stage. One of the hardest things in my life to swallow was when I had the opportunity to go through Warriors Ascent with cohort 37. Is one of the gentlemen, Kerry Stewart, looked at us and said, he loved and accepted us for who we are right at that moment. And that was so very impactful when I thought about how many people do I surround myself with that could say the same thing, that they loved me for who I was right at that moment, not who I was 5 minutes ago or 10 years ago, but who I am right at that moment. And that's been a way that I've tried to model some of my life and interactions. Again, I'm not perfect, But I try to think about that a lot. The people that I'm dealing with, can I truly say that I love them for who they are at that moment? Even if they're struggling, even if they're not perfect, they still deserve my love.
He is excellent at that. I mean, he truly does love and appreciate the people that he meets and he encounters for who they are in that moment and what they bring in that moment. And I just love him to death myself. I hope one day I'll have him on the podcast as well.
No, he's such a great person, but I will say the whole core of the Warriors Ascent team. I absolutely love every conversation and remember a lot of those conversations I have with whether it's Mike Kenny or with Christy Cook. She's just like a big sister to me. Tammy Brown, I probably wear out her phone some weeks because I can't speak highly enough of the individuals that have taken time out of their life to care about me as an individual and not me as a number, as a something they can get out of it. It's me as a person, and that continues to give me a lot of hope. But also, like Chris always reminds me, I need to give myself a little grace for my shortcomings sometimes too, and know that I also deserve, while I'm trying to love and accept everybody, that I need to do the same thing for myself. And that is sometimes the hardest thing, is to love yourself, especially when you're not feeling good in that moment, whether you're dealing with your struggles or you were short with somebody unintentionally. Sometimes it's hard to love yourself in that moment. But getting yourself back to that healing where you can start learning to love yourself. That's the hardest love to have.
Well, Seth, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today, brother, because everything you do for this community, everything you've done for me, it's just, it's more than I'll be able to repay you for. But you will have my undivided attention and my love all the time. You are a brother to me, and I think you already know that. So, but I'm going to let the whole world know it right now. This is my brother, Seth. I love this guy.
Well, and you deserve every ounce of that love. You deserve every bit of that love.
I hope you'll come back and join us again as we continue having these vital conversations with our veterans and our first responders, reaching out to those people who are really carrying the weight and don't know where to turn. It's so important that if you notice something, you say something, talk to people, reach out. If you don't feel comfortable reaching out, if you feel that's an unsafe thing for you, then let somebody else know so they can reach out. I think that's a huge thing. Because some people are, I don't know what to say to them. I don't know what to do. What if this happens or what if that happens? What if we wait too long and it's too late?
Some of those things, going back to earlier, is it's simple conversation. You start talking to them, and it's easy to steer to how they're feeling for that moment. The scary thing is when they answer, sometimes it does cause you to have to do some action, but I'd rather they tell me and I have to do something. So basic conversation. The thing is when they're humanized in a conversation, there's a lot that they will start sharing. And sometimes it can be just as simple as me hijacking your computer, or it can be just as simple as looking at something on the wall and just starting a genuine conversation with somebody and getting the temperature of how they're doing. But a conversation is better than no conversation, as long as we're not there to be destructive.
Sometimes the best thing you can do is hold someone accountable. So, the Superhuman Resilience Project is brought to you by Renewed Perspectives, LLC. You can check us out at www.renewedperspectives.me, where you will find our podcast page as well, links to my books, journals, and swag. But most importantly, our sponsors, who I would also like to thank right now. We're going to start with W Energy. Long shifts, heavy calls, and sleepless nights. Veterans and first responders know what it means to push through, but your energy shouldn't have to come at the cost of your health. So that's why W Energy created a cleaner way to stay sharp. No sugar, no dyes, no jitters, no crash. Just steady, reliable energy that respects your body when you demand it. Whether you're gearing up for the day or recovering from the last one, W helps you stay focused, alert, and in control. Fuel up with integrity at W.GG and use this code SHRP10 for a special 10% discount off of your order. Our other sponsor, Deemed Fit for Duty, every shift, every call, every mission, first responders and veterans show up with everything they've got. And Deemed Fit for Duty was built for that level of grit. This isn't just activewear, it's purpose-driven gear created by first responders for first responders. It's clothing that moves with you, it holds up to the pressure, and it gives back to the community you serve. When you wear Deemed Fit, you're wearing pride, you're wearing purpose, and you're wearing resilience. Visit deemedfitforduty.com and use the code SHRPWGY6 for an exclusive discount from the Superhuman Resilience Project. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for giving yourself this moment. And thank you for choosing to show up for yourself in the way that you show up for everyone else. We'll be back next week with so much more. And until then, you've been trained to be superhuman, but here you can just be human.